All right, I want to say welcome, Eddie, Fast Eddie Chambers, right? World class boxer.
Yeah.
For those unaware, this virgin here has, and correct me if I'm wrong, 48 professional fights,
Yeah.
43 wins, 24 by TKO, with only 5 losses.
Yeah, man.
All right, cool then.
I just get beat up for a living.
Glad to have you here.
No problem, man.
First question I have is, or it's not even a question, it's something I found very interesting. ESPN had a sports skills difficulty ranking, right? Of over 60 sports, and boxing was number 1.
Ooh.
For those listening, the criteria was endurance, strength, power, speed, agility, flexibility, nerve. What they meant by nerve is the ability to overcome fear, durability, the ability to withstand physical punishment, which they put NBA at the top of that, hand-eye coordination, analytic aptitude, right? The top 5 difficult sports were number 1, boxing, ice hockey, football, basketball, and wrestling. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, with boxing, there's so many things to overcome mentally, not just the physical aspect. And I think the major mental thing, especially for me, was to be able to not only, get out there and do what I'm supposed to do, but do it in the face of all the expectations. Not just expectations from other people, but of myself and my dad. And my dad was probably the biggest one I was worried about. But that's a real difficult thing. Fear in general, when you're like getting in there with a puncher who can literally take you out with one punch. There's a lot you got to overcome with that mentally. And just, there's the crowd there, so much going on. I've had situations where when I fought for the title, I was hearing, and this is never a good thing, I was hearing certain things coming from the crowd, not necessarily the crowd, but the immediate audience that was like right close by, like supporters of him, saying, "You suck," and I kept hearing it. "You suck, Eddie. You suck," and I just kept hearing it. And you don't understand how much that actually plays all into your head when you're already having a tough time. You know what I'm saying? So like you see in these NBA games, you see like the fans getting in there and they talking crap to the players, and it's like if they're having a bad game, that can really affect it even further. You know what I'm saying?
When did you learn the skill to really lock in during going into a match and during a match? Man,
I would get so nervous that it was almost kind of just like, I remember my very first amateur fight was the most nervous I've ever been. Even my first pro fight. I was so nervous in my first fight that if I had my driver's license, I would have gotten in the car and drove off. That's how crazy it was for me. I was so nervous. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to contain it. But I grew up with my dad. Early on, my mom wasn't around, so she got with us later, mainly because of my dad. But he had a different kind of mindset. We never really talked about how much we loved each other and stuff like that. It was just that old school hardcore mindset. So regardless of how I felt, even now, how I feel, I never really voice how difficult things are for me, or if I'm struggling, if I need something, I'll never ask anybody for nothing. I swear to you.
Were you in one of those situations where I forgot to break you, man, but it was actually on Netflix. It's a documentary called Loser. It's a Jamaican dude. But anyway, did you really love boxing, or you boxing because of your pops?
Boxing because of my pops, 100%. Like I told you this, and we talked a little bit about this, but if it wasn't for him, I would have chosen another career path, 1,000,000%. If it wasn't for him pushing me into it, because he obviously saw something early that he knew, you know what I mean, that I could be something. He knew the athleticism and the coordination things that I had early on when I was younger, because I played football, I did other things, and I was always a pretty decent athlete, like I said, as far as coordination, and he just knew. And he said, I'm going to be able to affect change in this kid's life. I'm here. I can make sure he's going to do this. You know what I mean? I'm not going to allow him to do anything else. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to give him the chance to like anything else, even though it happened anyway with basketball. But he forced it upon me, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. When you're a kid, you don't really truly always know what you want. Obviously, you can like something for a minute, and all of a sudden later on it's something you don't like anymore, or it becomes too hard because you got to focus on it. And that could have been part of what boxing was. It was kind of interesting early, you know what I mean, to me, like, oh, I can box, I can throw punches, I can. But once you get into it, and you start feeling the pain, and it's hard to stick with it. It's hard to stick with it unless you got a man in your life that's strong like that. It's hard to stick with it.
I want to jump back to the technicalities in boxing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're known for being a highly skilled,
Right.
technical boxer.
Yeah.
Now, is that something you think someone can have naturally in regards to that, reading people and what's the term I would use, countering certain things,
Mhm.
or is it something that needs to just be developed?
There's a little bit of you can have a natural aptitude of like just being able to kind of get a feel for certain things a little better than others. You know what I mean? But as far as the natural thing, I would lean more toward athleticism is the difference. I think you kind of have to be. You got to have time in there. You got to put time in order to really be able to see, you know, the difference of certain movements or certain shots you might throw and the reaction you get from it, or, you know, just like planning your IQ. All those things take time to develop. But I was training this kid. His name was Jared, and his sister too. I was training her too. And I've never seen I've had no one that has been this, when I say from the word go, and they've never done it before from what I understand. They told me, oh no, I've never ever picked up a pair of gloves. Nobody's ever held the pads from me. The kid came straight out, put his hands up. I told him, yeah, put your elbows in, line up this way, threw the punch perfect. Punch perfect. I said, wait, do that again? And then I would hold the pads for him. Papa. I'm like, this kid is 100% natural. There's nothing that I really have to do. I could teach him, or his sister too. She was like the same way. Her name was Gabrielle. And I was like, damn, how could you just be that good at this from the word go? And that doesn't necessarily mean anything about competition. Now, if I put them in there with somebody else, and, you know, obviously that, but just the coordination, the understanding of how to throw the punch properly, the timing of the punch to land on the pads is crazy.
Speaking about timing, I'm always mesmerized with the timing in musicians, in regards to especially bands, but also it correlates with athletes, right?
Oh, yeah.
Your timing, I don't even know what adjective to describe it. Like, I think we spoke about earlier in regards to you prepare so much that you just react to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But the timing sometimes is somewhat cosmic in the sense that, like, how can you move at a, you know what I'm saying? It's
That's
like
the same question I would ask you
yeah.
on the court.
Yeah.
How can you do that on the court?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's just like in boxing. See, I like to say, like, if there's a guy that's got a fast jab or whatever, but I still can counter his jab. It's the timing, it's the understanding of the pace that is coming. So it's like, and also his
Like
body position.
Aerodynamics almost coming into play.
Very close, very close. And like you said, aerodynamics. So it's like his body positioning. It's like the process of elimination. It's like, what can he do from that position, right? So you look at it, oh, he's leaning to his right side. So he can throw a right hand, but it'll take a little bit longer. So the jab is probably the first thing he would throw in this situation. Then you also think about what's gone on in the fight or the sparring session previous to the time that you're thinking about what he's doing, and you're seeing a pattern. You're seeing a pattern. So you let that pattern develop, and you say, okay, so now I can do this. So he throws that jab. Now I can pull. Here's the jab. It can literally be this close to me, and then I'm going over the top of it and throwing a right hand counter shot. This is what I'm saying. It's like when you understand what your opponent is going to do and the pace he's going to do it. This is why I agree, by the way, with that ESPN. Was it the ESPN top ranking of the most difficult, because it's literally boxing and combat sports in general are transition constantly. You're always on offense, you're always on defense. So you constantly have to be able to make split-second decisions. And the only way you get it is, and boxing is so nuanced that you have to train that. You can't sit and think like, oh, all right, when he throw, no, it's too late already. You done got hit with the shot, or you missed your opportunity or whatever. So it has to be instantaneous. So you have to literally practice it so that it is such a reaction that it's like waking up in the morning and brushing your teeth or breathing or something, you know, even more regular to a life. You know what I'm saying? How you live, how you drink water, whatever, how your body naturally just adapts to what you do to it. That all has to play out. In boxing, it has to be just like that. It can't be something that you're thinking of like, all right, as soon as he throws the left hook, I'm going to catch it with the right hand, and then I'm going to throw. It's too late already. You got to be able to just bah, 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 bah. It just has to happen. It has to happen naturally. So it requires an insane amount of practice. No question.